What's going on, everybody? It's Tori and welcome to my Western Conference standings predictions. In this video I'm going to be going through all 15 Western Conference teams and I'll be trying to predict their records. Now leave your standings predictions down below, and after the season's done I'll come back and look at this comment section and figure out who's the best. I'll actually have a scoring system for that, so leave your standings predictions below. Now we've already done a Western Conference preview podcast. That was Eric's rankings, and we didn't talk about my rankings because I was saving them for the standings video. So on this right side, we're going to have the standings 1 through 15, and I'm going to go through from 15 all the way up to 1, and I'll have like the graphics, it'll look all nice. So let's jump into my 15th ranked team, and this team should be no surprise. It's the Phoenix Suns, who I have a predicted record of 22-60. Now, I think Phoenix is a little bit better than last year. They've added some veterans. They've added a lot of shooting. They had a very good preseason run shooting the ball, but their defense is going to struggle. They don't have a rim protector. Devin Booker is a poor defender, and I just don't think their offense is quite good enough to be able to consistently outscore teams. I think teams are going to regularly put up 120 points per game on this Phoenix Suns team, and although they are a bit better, they are a bit deeper, they do have more veterans now, I still don't see any other Western Conference team falling all the way down to 15. At 14, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I have them with a record of 31-51, which is a really good record for a 14th place team. I'm just not that high on this team because they really only have one above average NBA player, and that is Karl Anthony Towns. Towns will put up great stats this season. He'll win them some games by himself, but other than him, the Minnesota Timberwolves has nobody that impresses me. I think Andrew Wiggins is extremely overrated. He's a volume scorer who doesn't score efficiently and doesn't provide anything else. Jeff Teague is on the downside of his career, and his production and his efficiency has been declining. Their second best player might be a rookie who they drafted with the 6th overall pick, and that is Jarrett Culver. I thought drafting him was a good move, and I think Culver could be a really good piece for them moving forward, but I don't believe he's good enough to be a number 2 player on a Western Conference team with that team winning many games. I do like some of the upside pickups they picked up this past offseason, guys like Jake Layman, Noah Vonleh, Jordan Bell, and others, but I still don't think this team is ready to win that many games. My 13th ranked team is the Dallas Mavericks at 32-50. I think this team is very overrated going into the season. In my opinion, they only have 2 above average NBA players, that is Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. I have questions about Porzingis going into the season coming off of his ACL tear. I don't think he's quite ready enough to be the number 2 player on a playoff team. I think he might have been able to be that player before his ACL injury, but I do believe it'll take him some time to get back to the Kristaps Porzingis we saw in New York. Also, Luka Doncic has a ton of hype around him and he's beloved by many NBA fans, but when looking at him as being the best player on a Western Conference team, he doesn't quite stack up to the teams in the playoff hunt. If one of those 2 guys gets injured, this team is going to be absolutely awful. They do have some solid role players, but they just don't have the good 3rd, 4th, and 5th options that a team needs to push for the playoffs in the Western Conference. 32 wins for the Dallas Mavericks might be a bit low, but I feel pretty safe with them at the 13th slot. The 12th slot, I have a bit of a surprise. That is the Memphis Grizzlies. I know most people would have this team a little bit lower, but I have them a little bit higher than others because I'm very high on Ja Morant. I think this dude is going to win Rookie of the Year. I thought that he was going to win it before Zion Williamson got hurt. Jaren Jackson Jr. is set to break out. Jonas Valanciunas is one of the most underrated big men in the league. Jay Crowder fits in with Memphis's grit and grind style perfectly. Brandon Clark is going to be a good big off the bench right away. Memphis has a lot of good pieces, and they're not flashy pieces, which is why I think they're being a bit underrated, but I do believe that they can actually win some games, and I believe this will be one of the top teams, if not the top team in the NBA, when it comes to upsetting playoff teams late in the season and messing up seeding. The 11th ranked team, I have the New Orleans Pelicans, and I have them with a 35-47 record. I also believe the Pelicans are a bit overrated going into the season, and now Zion Williamson will miss the first few weeks of the season. I think Zion will have trouble staying healthy until he loses some weight, which I don't think is much of a possibility during his rookie season, so I don't really expect much of a contribution from Williamson. Outside of Williamson, they got some solid pieces: Drew Holiday, Derek Favors, Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, but those last 2 that they just got from the Lakers, I'm not as high on as others. I like that Lonzo has tweaked his form a little bit and his shot does look better. I think he'll be able to knock down more of them, but I still don't think he's that great of an NBA starting point guard. Brandon Ingram, I believe, is very overrated because he's not a guy who defends defends all that well. He's not a guy who rebounds all that well, and he's not the most efficient player. He's also a guy who loves to create with the ball in his hands, and playing off of guys like Drew Holiday and Lonzo Ball just doesn't seem to fit his style of play. Then again, he's not quite good enough to put the ball in his hands consistently and have him be your number one scorer. So those are some reasons why I have the New Orleans Pelicans 11th with a 35-47 record. 10th, I have the Oklahoma City Thunder, who I believe are being underrated going into the season. I have them with a 40-42 record. Now, they got Chris Paul, Danilo Gallinari, and Steven Adams. That's a pretty good trio to have leading your team, especially for a team that many people expect to have possibly a top 5 pick next season. Now, it's very likely that they could trade 1, 2, or even all 3 of these guys at the NBA trade deadline, but before that, I believe they'll win a lot of games. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander should take the next step and be a very helpful piece that will help them win a lot of games as well. I'm really high on their first round draft pick from this past season, that is Darius Bazley. Now, obviously, whether or not they trade their top 3 players will affect their record dramatically if it's done sooner. I still think they hold on to those pieces and maybe try and win some games until the deadline. I think that could result with them having a 40-42 record, which I have them listed as here. Sacramento Kings come in at number 9. I have them with a 42-40 record. I'm really high on the backcourt they got with De'Aaron Fox and Buddy Hield. I think Bogdan Bogdanovic is a potential breakout candidate this season. Marvin Bagley should take that second-year leap and be a very helpful player for them in terms of winning games. But with all that being said, I think the Sacramento Kings had a terrible offseason. Those contracts that they gave out to Harrison Barnes, Corey Joseph, Dwayne Dedmon, and Trevor Ariza were horrible contracts, and I don't believe any one of those players is going to affect their team all that much. I think it just hurts their future flexibility. I think that it might lead to them not being able to make a move at the trade deadline that they otherwise could have made. They should have signed these guys to 1 or 2 year deals, which would have made them easier to trade at the trade deadline. And if they had more flexibility to make a move at the deadline, I might have had them with a better record than this. I do really like their young core though, which is why I have them with a winning record for the first time in years. And coming in at number 8, we have the San Antonio Spurs, and this is no surprise because the Spurs always make the playoffs. They've made the playoffs every year since I believe 1999, which was the year that Tim Duncan was a rookie, and I believe that streak will continue, although they're getting closer and closer to falling out of that playoff picture. Now, I have them with a 47-win season, but I believe that they do have 50-win upside. I believe they have a lot of players that could potentially break out this season. We know DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge is going to be good, but I think center Jakob Poeltl could have a massive leap this season. He's shown some flashes to pass the ball. He's shown that he can protect the rim really, really well. He's shown that he can finish at an efficient clip inside. He reminds me a bit of Yusuf Nurkic before Yusuf Nurkic got traded to the Portland Trailblazers, and then Nurkic blew up, turned into a good passing big man, and turned into an elite rim protector. I think Jakob Poeltl could potentially have that same development for the San Antonio Spurs. And then beyond that, Derek White could take another step in production. He took a big step last season, but I believe he still has another step yet to take. Lonnie Walker is a very intriguing player to watch. He's going into his second year and was injured for the majority of his rookie season. He has a ton of raw physical talent, and his skill level has me a bit impressed. If he can put it all together in his second season, he could be a very, very good player for the San Antonio Spurs. They also get DeJounte Murray back, who is a great point guard to have because he's an elite defender. And in the West, you have to go up against the likes of Damian Lillard, Steph Curry, Mike Conley, Russell Westbrook, D'Angelo Russell, De'Aaron Fox, and other elite NBA point guards. Having a guy like DeJounte Murray to lock them down could be a very good piece to have. All in all, I feel safe having the San Antonio Spurs with a 47-win season, but I still think they could possibly push for home court advantage, which nobody seems to think is actually a possibility. Coming in at number 7, I have the Golden State Warriors winning 48 games, losing 34. Now, I think the defense for the Golden State Warriors is going to be a big problem this season. Of course, they have Klay Thompson out. They lost Kevin Durant, who is a very good defender to have at the small forward position. They still have Draymond, but that's pretty much their only good defender in the starting lineup. Looney can be a serviceable center, but he's not an elite rim protector by any means, and their defense is definitely going to decline. Now, obviously, their offense will have huge nights led by Stephen Curry, and D'Angelo Russell was a good pickup to have until Klay Thompson gets back. However, their offense isn't going to be as good as last year without KD and without Klay Thompson, so in a year where they're going to need to put the most points on the board, they're not going to be able to do so quite like they did in the past. I could see some issues arising with Draymond Green if this team is mediocre, and they have probably the worst bench out of any playoff team in the NBA. Their bench is horrible. Now, they'll be able to get by staggering Stephen Curry and D'Angelo Russell, but given the players surrounding them on that bench unit, defenses will just load up on whichever one is in the game. Therefore, I have the Golden State Warriors here at 7th, falling off quite a bit from the dynasty that we saw with them winning 3 out of 4 championships. Number 6, we have the Utah Jazz winning 50 games, losing 32 games. Now, from 6th all the way on up, there's a bunch of teams bunched in real close, and I could see all these teams being listed in pretty much any order. Now, the Utah Jazz mightily improved their offense this past offseason, and they're one of the media's darlings for a dark horse candidate to make the NBA Finals. But I have serious reservations about them abandoning their identity, and that identity is being a defensive team. This has been one of the top 3 or 5 defenses in the NBA for the past couple of years, but they're abandoning that by playing Bojan Bogdanovic at power forward. Bogdanovic is a horrible defender for a power forward. He'll be taken advantage of in the post by bigger, stronger opposing power forwards. Their rebounding is a huge question mark with him playing power forward in the starting lineup. And Rudy Gobert will be left on an island by himself to protect the rim because Bogdanovic will be a non-factor in that area as well. Now, they did improve their shooting. They do have more offensive threats. Their offense will definitely be better, and I think they'll be a little bit better of a team for it. But I don't think this is going to be a top 5 defense anymore. I don't think they're going to be an elite defensive team, which is why I don't have them higher on this list. I also have some concerns about their bench. I'm not high on Emmanuel Mudiay. I think Jeff Green is a little bit overrated. They do have Ed Davis, who I like, and Joe Ingles is probably going to come off the bench with Royce O'Neal starting at small forward, so we'll just have to see how that pans out, but I'm just not as high on this team as a lot of other people are, which is why I only have them winning 50 games and getting the 6th seed. The 5th seed is another team that I believe is a little bit overhyped, at least for the regular season. That is the Los Angeles Lakers. I have them winning 51 games and losing 31 games. Now, LeBron is getting up there in age, and Anthony Davis has been nicked up all throughout his career. If one of these guys misses time during the regular season, this team is really going to struggle to win games because I'm not high on their depth whatsoever. They have a lot of veterans coming in this season that a lot of Laker fans seem to think are still good players, but I think they're washed. I'm also not high on Kyle Kuzma. I believe he's a bit overrated as well, as he's not a good three-point shooter like many people seem to think. He's not a good defender. He's a horrible rebounder for his position. He doesn't pass the ball. He doesn't make plays for others. He's basically a volume scorer who's not all that efficient, and he's not all that good off the ball spacing the floor for LeBron James or Anthony Davis. So I don't think he's a good fit with the star duo, and I don't believe he's that good of a third option for a contending team. I also believe that the Lakers will probably rest LeBron at times, and when they're resting LeBron, I don't see how this Laker team is any better than Anthony Davis's Pelicans team from last season. I don't believe the Lakers are going to take the regular season all that seriously. They'll be more focused on the playoff run, so I believe they might give up some wins by resting LeBron. So that's why I have the Lakers winning only 51 games when a lot of other people have them winning more. 4th, I have the Houston Rockets. I have them winning 51 games as well, just like the Los Angeles Lakers. I have them winning the tiebreaker. Now, this team has won more games than this in the past, and a lot of people believe that the Rockets upgraded by trading Chris Paul for Russell Westbrook. But I don't believe they upgraded because I don't believe Russell Westbrook knows how to coexist with James Harden. I know they played in the past, but they were both completely different players when they last played together in Oklahoma City. Russ can't space the floor, and playing him off the ball while James Harden isolates probably isn't a good idea because the paint will be a little bit more packed. Chris Paul is one of the smartest players in the NBA. He knew how to coexist with James Harden. He also was a bit of a better defender than Russell Westbrook, as Westbrook has declined in that area in the past couple of years. So although Russell Westbrook is a more talented player, I think he is a worse fit next to James Harden than Chris Paul was. Therefore, I think this team will be a little bit worse. I think this team might clash a little bit. They'll have some chemistry issues to figure out, and therefore I only have them winning 51 games and finishing 4th in the Western Conference for the 2nd year in a row. Now, getting the 3 seed for the 3rd year in a row, I have the Portland Trailblazers. I have them with a 52-30 record. That's a win less than they had last season, and I think that's due to the Western Conference getting slightly tougher. I believe this Portland Trailblazer team got a little bit better this offseason. They lost their 2 starting forwards, which were defensive-minded players in Al-Farouq Aminu and Maurice Harkless, and they replaced them with more offensive-minded players in Rodney Hood and Zach Collins. Now, Zach Collins could be a better defender than Harkless and Aminu ever was, and I also believe he provides a little bit more on the offensive end. Collins and Rodney Hood were much better forward options for the Blazers in the playoffs last season, and Maurice Harkless and Al-Farouq Aminu were basically non-existent and honestly didn't play all that much. A lot of people say that the Blazers are going to struggle with losing those two guys, but they fail to account for the fact that those guys provided absolutely nothing for the Blazers during their second round series against the Denver Nuggets, which they won without home court advantage. A lot of people think that the Blazers defense will struggle, but during that second round series, Portland was having a lot of success with a lineup including Rodney Hood, Zach Collins, and Enes Kanter. Now their starting lineup will include Rodney Hood, Zach Collins, and Hassan Whiteside, and Whiteside is a much better defender than Enes Kanter, and I believe he's the better player. Zach Collins is also a really good rim protector, and those two protecting the rim will be the best rim protection duo this side of Philadelphia. I also think the Portland Trailblazers bench is a bit of a wild card, but they do have multiple players that can create shots. Kent Bazemore can create for himself and others. Mario Hezonja is going to be used as a point forward this season, and Anthony Simons could have a breakout season as the sixth man off the bench. I think Portland's being slept on once again, just like they are every year, and I believe they'll get the 3 seed for the third year in a row, which, given past precedent, is much more likely than what a lot of other people seem to think. The number 2 team I have is the Denver Nuggets, also winning 52 games with the Portland Trailblazers. These two teams are interchangeable. I do believe Denver overachieved a little bit last season, but I do believe they're a little bit better because they do have some young talent that's going to improve a little bit. Gary Harris has reportedly lost 15 pounds of weight and is looking much better in training camp than he did last season. Jeremy Grant was a huge pickup for them, and he's a versatile big who can hit threes and can guard the opposing team's best player no matter what position they play. And having a guy like him off the bench just improved Denver's depth even more. I believe Denver is the deepest team in the entire NBA. I believe they have the best bench. They have a lot of guys whose roles fit well with each other. This is a very cohesive team, and I believe they're a bit better. The West is just a little bit tougher, so I believe 52 wins is a good number for the Denver Nuggets. However, I do believe this is a team that could possibly get that number 1 seed and win 55 games or more. And then with the number 1 seed, no surprise, the Los Angeles Clippers. What the surprise might be is that I only have them winning 54 games, losing 28, and that's because Paul George will miss about a month to start the season. Kawhi Leonard will probably play less than 70 games because I believe that they'll do some load management with him. This is a very good team though. They're the favorite in the Western Conference. Defensively, this team is going to be a nightmare. Patrick Beverley, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and Maurice Harkless 1 through 4 is a very scary defensive lineup. Their spacing is a bit suspect, starting Patrick Beverley and Maurice Harkless. Harkless shot 27% from 3 last year. Beverley has improved his 3-point shot, but I believe he may have overachieved a little bit last year. Zubac and Montrezl Harrell aren't 3-point shooters at the center spot, so Kawhi Leonard and Paul George might be struggling to get the space necessary to really be their most effective versions of themselves. But with all those concerns, I still have them winning 54 games. So as I said, leave your standings predictions down in the comment section below. Let me know what you thought of mine, and we'll end up revisiting these standings predictions once the season is over. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and with that, I'm out of here. This has been Tori. I'll see you guys later. Peace out. Go Blazers.